The scripture this morning is Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14. For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. Thus endeth the reading, the 139th Psalm, verses 13 and 14. After a few years of teaching clarinet at the university level, I devised a sort of matrix for my performance majors, those aiming to actually perform clarinet at the professional level. And I devised a matrix laying out the long path forward on our 4 years together. So imagine, if you will, a square or a box, divided again into 4 smaller boxes like a window pane. And in the first box, I would explain, this is where they are now as a brand new freshman. They don't know what they don't know. And it's in this early phase that I tell the young clarinetists how they're doing well, but where they need improvement. And this is the time where we identify gaps in their knowledge and in their techniques and skills. And I joke sort of, here I am, Dr. J, with my doctorate. And like a medical doctor, now that you have my diagnosis, I'm going to lay out the course of action to get you better. And I do admit that on its face and without a good bedside manner, this could be a rude awakening, a pulling back of the curtain to reveal a harsh reality of where they actually are. But I never do this without a covenant of trust and a clear vision for the years ahead. It can be overwhelming, but once the freshman has grasped the reality of where they are against where they need to be, I gently close the curtain again, and we begin. And that brings us to the second box of this matrix, because during this phase, one by one, I reach behind the curtain and I reintroduce a deficiency, and we work to resolve them and improve them and strengthen them again and again over the course of the next semesters and years. Now, there's a thing about these deficiencies, these weaknesses, because with very, very rare exception, are these problems really the fault of the student? Sometimes the technique or method they were taught was appropriate for grade school, but not for the university or professional level. And sometimes, in the absence of a regular teacher, they came up with their own solution or their own method, which wasn't quite right. Or maybe it was just a partial solution. And sometimes they're missing a skill set entirely because perhaps they never needed it in their own school music programs, or because no one had the occasion to teach them. It's during this second phase where I introduce the student to a new skill set, but it doesn't feel natural at first. And of course, they don't reproduce it readily. And I remind them, and then they fix it and they do it again. And then they play it wrong, and so I remind them again of the correct way, and they do it right, and then we repeat the process. Then, fed up with hearing Dr. J's voice, they catch themselves before I say anything, and they fix it on their own. And eventually, this new technique becomes a good habit. But what do I do? What does Dr. J do? I reach back, I pull back that curtain, and I pull out another deficiency with a new technique to learn. And I warn them, this is going to be like learning to juggle balls, a lot of balls. And just as you get really good with 4 balls, Dr. J tosses you a 5th. And as soon as you get proficient with that 5th, I toss you another. Or as one of my undergrads describe it, sometimes it feels like a flaming torch or a chainsaw. Now, eventually, the clarinetist moves to a phase where they know all the right things to do, but there are still frequent slips and trips. They have the knowledge, but there's no fluency. The right techniques can be reproduced with concentration and repetition, but not yet naturally. And this phase stinks for the music student as they develop. It's like that movie Groundhog's Day. And for those who don't practice, it can be downright demoralizing, because at this point, there's nothing new coming. It's just the same over and over again. And momentum and progress rests almost entirely in their hands at this point. But I assure them, I promise them that once everything flows, they get to move into the fourth and final stage. And this is where the magic happens, musically and artistically. New music will still challenge them, perhaps, but they will master it more readily so they can focus on why we became musicians in the first place, creating and sharing beauty. Now, for those of you with corporate backgrounds, you may recognize this quad chart, as I describe it, as the progression of skills competency, starting from being untrained to working independently to being able to train others. And the fact that I stumbled upon this independently as a music teacher just goes to show that it can apply to a lot of things. Now, I've got over 40 years of teaching experience under my belt now, and the funny thing is, it actually took me a very long time to see the parallel between what I was teaching my music students at the college and how life was teaching me over the years. And even after I was recycling myself in life lessons through the third phase, working on personal and spiritual skills over and over, like Groundhog's Day sometimes, which is where I think the majority of where we spend our lifetimes, but trying again and again to make the Christed path my default modus operandi. Now, I'll be honest, over the entirety of my college teaching career, I can think of just a handful of students who graduated with both feet fully planted in that final fourth stage. Not necessarily perfect for whoever really is, but fluid and fluent with their music performance and able to adapt and grow with ease. Now, the overwhelming majority of my students graduate kind of straddled between the third and the fourth domains, the third and fourth quadrants, fluent in some ways, but still needing self-vigilance in other ways, and sometimes maybe still needing a little mentorship. And as I mentioned in the corporate model, this fourth phase means you can teach others. And for my students who aimed not to become professional musicians in orchestras and pit orchestras and bands, but who aimed to be high school and middle school and elementary school music educators, I was surprisingly for them all the more adamant that it wasn't just enough to have an intellectual grasp of the concepts. They have to have walked the walk. I like to say you'll never be able to lead your own students any place you haven't been yourself. And I remember one time I had a very resistant student who I was trying. She wanted to be a high school band director, and I couldn't get her to produce a staccato. And she knew what to do, and she would do it a little bit, but then she would go back to what she was doing, years before. And finally one day she set her clarinet in her lap, and she said, "Dr. J, because I know what you want me to do, but you're the only one here who cares. You're the only one who cares that I can't play staccato." And I said, "I want you to repeat this." I said, "Say that again." She said, "You're the only one here who cares that I can't play staccato." I said, "Would you repeat that, just the first 7 words you just said to me?" She goes, "You're the only one here who cares." And then she stopped. Oh, and that was the end of that, fortunately. I did kind of pull a little thing on her, but she embraced it and moved on. But you'll never be able to lead your own students to any place you haven't been yourself. And as I was keying this very sentence into this sermon, I was fully aware at the moment of what this means for me as a minister. I can never summon you to aspects of spirituality that I have not fully embraced myself. And this is why there will never, ever be any snake handling or kerosene drinking in any of my services. But taking my music education model to the personal and metaphysical level, we do arrive at this so-called matrix of mine with some of our natural goodness intact. Even though we don't know what we don't know, there are some things that we just innately get right. And we have good rules and values our families and communities instilled in us, as well as perhaps some not so good ones. And try as we may also bring in compensating behaviors that we devised in our very earliest years as a response to the way the adults in our lives perhaps, failed us or inevitably handed us a little bit of baggage growing up. And as I see it, there are three versions of us working our way through this matrix. First, the person we truly are, the authentic spiritual self, and this is, on its face, exhibited by our innate goodness. And next, there is that person that others have projected upon us, the one others have convinced us that we're supposed to be. And then there's this person that we'd like to be. And this last version can be just as much aspirational as it is compensating. A Freudian might describe it as a union of desire and delusion. We also arrive in phase one unaware, unequipped for situations and life conditions which, up to this point, we may never have encountered, never expected, or perhaps never even imagined were possible. And alas, life, our teacher, does not allow us to remain in this innocent state. Phase two in life is what my father frequently warned me of as a teenager as a rude awakening, boy. And during my last sermon, I described Edgar Cayce's perspective that the first decades of our adulthood are not the pinnacle of life. They're the proving ground. And I firmly believe this to be true. Courtesy of our soul's contract, if you will, karma, if you like, life begins to do to us what music teachers do to their students. It reaches behind the curtain and pulls out a new challenge, a new encounter, a new experience to address a weakness or a lack of the skill set. And the three versions of us step up to the challenge. Now, as the years go by, through each of these new initiations, we find that we may chafe under the expectations of others as how they define us. We may discover that the version of who we would like to be requires too much energy to sustain. And much to our surprise, we discover that even the truest and best parts of ourselves, our compassion, our love, our generosity, our empathy, are better employed with boundaries. As I said, phase three in life development is commensurate with spiritual development. When confronted with the messiness of the human condition, ideally, our better selves step to the fore. Sometimes we steel ourselves and do the right thing even when our gut yearns to react differently, more viscerally. And of course, sometimes we fail ourselves in the moment entirely, and sometimes we backtrack and try it again. But isn't it funny how in order to raise the vibration of our spiritual selves, we must slow down our human selves? This is the ironic power of spiritual work. By slowing down how we move through and react to the human world, we give our higher powers the opening to come forth and do their thing. And in doing so, over and over, the false aspects of who we're supposed to be and who we'd like to be are no longer fed. And they eventually fade away to the background. Who we truly are, who we're supposed to be, and who we'd like to be. Through the trials and recycling of this long phase three, the latter two don't die. They're really transformed. Eventually, the person who we'd like to be is the person that children and our lives would need us to be. The person that our dog thinks we are. The person that our partners need and that our various communities need. And we discover that this is also the person that we were supposed to be all along. And the three versions of you, once so dissonant, are now in harmony. And as the psalm said all along, truly this is the person who is knitted in your mother's womb. Each of you is fearfully and wonderfully made, and your soul knows it very well. Why don't you just let gravity take over your shoulders? Just let gravity drop everything down. Relax your jaw, your shoulders. Make sure you place your palms up. You've heard me say I like this because it's both a receiving gesture but also an offering gesture. These things go hand in hand. We receive so that we may give later. I want you to breathe through the nose. We're going to do just a little box breathing. Through the nose for a count of 4. Here we go. Inhale. Hold it in your belly. Slowly exhale. Hold the emptiness. Inhale through the nose. And hold it. And exhale. And hold the emptiness. And inhale through the nose again. Hold it in your belly. And exhale. Now, breathe through the nose to the entirety of your being. Through the nose, send it up to the third eye, down to the throat chakra, through the heart, to the solar plexus, to the sacral, down to the root. Just enjoy this loop of prana. Take it in at your own pace. We're going to go to a place that you've been before. You're standing at the edge of your spiritually sacred space. It's a beautiful garden. Beautiful private garden that is yours. You go to this garden alone. Your soul goes to the garden alone. It's a place of sustenance, a place of contemplation, a place without expectation or burden, a place of peace. When you look around and see all the beauty there, you see a pristine pool of water, perhaps spring-fed, or maybe it's a lagoon. Purifying body of water just for you. And you let go of your robes and you just step into the water. It's just the right temperature to envelop you, to the ankles, to the knees, to the hips, to the abdomen, to the chest, to the shoulders. You surrender to these sacred waters and you begin to float. Float, you feel the sun warming your face, your arms spread outward, opening, a welcoming embrace. Your legs are weightless. You have no expectations, no needs, no requirements. Nothing is needed of you except to be in this moment, weightless, burdenless. You are one with this water, these sacred waters. As you realize this, you begin to slowly drift below its surface. You are floating serenely, enveloped in this water. And you look, open your eyes, and you see this golden shaft of light coming from the sun through the water, and it illuminates just flecks of water all around you. And you see how this shaft of light intersects with your own body as you float there. Float going all the way down, past you, to the bottom, deep bottom of this sacred pool of water. As you marvel at the flickering sparks of golden light around you, you see that your hands are glowing of the same color where the light intersects you, where this beam of light, these shafts of light intersect you. Your hands are the same golden color. Your arms, your feet, your legs, your entire body, and you can even see the glow on your cheeks reflecting into your eyes. You are one with this shaft of light. You are light born. You may marvel at how you are connected to this light. You are part of this light. You are not distinct from it. You inhale. You take in this golden light inside you. You realize that you are now floating in the divine cosmos, the universal cosmos. You're floating. And you see this light, this golden shaft of light is coming from the divine source, far above, down through you, illuminating you, down from you, down, 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 to the human world below, the earth below. You are one with this light from divine source coming down through you. And as you visualize and you realize and you accept your oneness with this light, your figure merges with the light. Your consciousness just becomes part of this divine flow, these golden shafts of light from divine source down to the earth below. Because you are light born. And you gaze and you follow the trajectory of this light down to the earth. Down to the earth, and you see it leads to a seated figure, which is you. It leads into the crown chakra of your body, seated right here in this chapel, or right here at home, wherever you are. You gaze down at that body. Appreciation and love. That body, the light bearer. You, the light born. You take a deep breath. Fill yourself with the illumination. And on the exhale, your consciousness travels down through that ring, that beam of light, those rays of light, down, 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 into the crown chakra of your body, the light bearer. And you are once again inside your body, light-born you, inside light-bearer you. With your mind's eye, you look out through the eyes, but you can see inside this body your glowing hands, your glowing feet. You breathe in once again through your nose and allow yourself to fully integrate with this body of yours. As you are a light, now light bearer. You always have been light-born you. Breathe in once again through the nose. On the exhalation, light-born you and light-bearer you. On the exhale, open your eyes and become a part of this world where you have so much good to do. As you're ready, just wiggle your fingers and your toes. Wiggle your face. And slowly join us when you're ready.